Hey Internet, Kura here from QQMore.net. Finishing enemies, often referred to as stomping, is one of the most essential things in sPvP. A good or poorly executed stomp can make all the difference between a loss and a win. I want to show you with this in-depth guide some creative techniques which you can use to make sure to land the killing blow. Oh, and if you're watching this in the future, currently playing Guild Wars 5, then welcome to this retro vintage tutorial which will show you how we used to kill players back then. Okay, so let's start easy. What is a stomp and what is the difference between a safe stomp and a normal stomp? Once you did enough damage to an enemy player which led to the point that they entered the down state, you will need to perform a stomp in order to kill them. You can do this by right-clicking on the enemy while standing next to them, or, much easier, hitting the F button. Short explanation. A safe stomp describes the act of finishing another player with a likelihood of 100%. So, if you are absolutely sure that you can stomp an enemy player without getting interrupted, you are performing a safe stomp. Everyone who ever tried to stomp an enemy player knows that the down player and his or her team will do anything to hinder you from doing so. However, I will now give you a bunch of tricks to show you how to avoid these troubles. First one on the list is so simple that it's often overlooked. Downed enemies like engineers or warriors throw projectiles, which can be body blocked by standing in the path of the launched object. Handy to know, you can also cover your friends with a body block if they are capping a buff or an orb. Next one is more elegant and can be used alone. You can avoid attacks which interrupt you with skills which blind your foes. If you don't have a safe stomp ready, you can often save some time by trying to dodge the attack of the downed enemy. With a bit of practice you can easily spot these attacks. If you look closely, you will notice a very unique animation which you have to watch out for. A huge amount of actions need a target to function, counting in the enemy team and downed player skills. Therefore you can land a safe stomp if you have a possibility to enter stealth. There are many skills that grant you invulnerability, while still giving you the possibility to perform a stomp while immune to attacks. Furthermore, a well-timed block can provide you with enough freedom to secure a kill. The buff called Aegis is also a good example for this. Last addition to basic safe stomps is stability, which is probably the best known for this use. It negates any crowd control which is aimed at you, but only if casted before the CC hits. Okay, so by now you know a lot of tricks on how to land a safe stomp. But since this is an in-depth guide, we will take this even further. I will follow with some examples, which will scratch the surface of what is possible. However, there are many different ways which are used to combine these actions into chains that I decided to give you an understanding of how these advanced tactics work rather than a list which may be outdated someday. Remember, the following ideas fall and rise with your creativity and tactical finesse, as you often have to sacrifice defensive cooldowns. My first example is often referred to as port stomp. To do this, you have to use a skill which teleports you away from your target after you started to stomp. Your character, although out of range, will still be performing the stomp. Just a tiny bit before you would set the stomp into the ground, you teleport back and secure the kill. This stomp is tremendously hard to counter, since you can teleport yourself to a remote position to perform it safely without any interrupts. Moreover, it works on many classes which have the possibility to use 2 teleports after another, and, just as you saw, also works with portals. If you extend your event horizon from the utility skills over to the weapon skills, Phase Retreat, the second skill of the Mesmer staff, can also be one part of the Safestomp chain if combined with Blink. Here is another example which isn't that well known. Although the short bow teleport of a thief has a cast time and therefore will interrupt the stomp, you can use the time the projectile needs to travel to its destination to start a stomp within that time frame. After that, you simply need a way to teleport back. In this example, I used the Signet. Port stomps can also be performed by necromancers, which play with Flashworm and Spectral Walk. You will find these rarely though, since you need 2 of your most important defensive cooldowns for this. Port stomps can be especially useful against classes which use the teleport mechanic to delay your stomp, like Mesmers and Thieves. Speaking of necromancers, you can also stomp while in Death Shroud if you are low on HP. You can also enter Plague form after you initiated your stomp to increase your chances even further. You can even block projectiles with your Flashworm. And of course, if you have skills which reflect or destroy projectiles, you can use these to bypass engineers and warriors. In order to perform a safe stomp in teamfights, you have to coordinate with your team. Here's an example. If 2 or maybe even 4 people attempt to stomp the same person, only a single ally is needed to get him up again, since there is no damage which delays this process. And of course, the counter example. I stomp while my ally helps me out. Poison is especially good in these scenarios as it decreases healing. Here is another interesting thing which my friend Randy came up with. Stomps only work on the player you started to aim at when initiating. This means that you can't start a stomp on player A and teleport to down player B in order to land a kill. You can even use the environment to outplay your opponents. Sometimes a sharp corner can be enough to block a projectile. Wow, that was quite some input, wasn't it? As you probably already guess, there are many other tricks and clues seated among every class waiting to be explored. Instead of continuing this endless list of possibilities, I'd rather like to boil the foundations of safe stomps in a little wrap up down. Once you understand the mechanic behind this idea, you should be good to go with your own set of skills anyway. First thing, communication. As you've seen, coordination is what makes a safe stomp possible. Multiple players safe stomping at once is a waste of cooldowns and can even fail. Remember that you always have to invest something to perform a safe stomp. You either have to trade an offensive or defensive ability in to pull it off. By communicating with your team, you can make sure that you don't put your efforts to waste. Be creative. You don't need your Plague form off cooldown to perform a safe stomp. Sometimes even a silly corner or well-timed blind of yours aimed to assist your teammates can be enough to secure the killing blow. Third is practice. I'm not a frequent Mesmer player. I failed several times until I pulled off my first successful portal stomp, and you are no exception. You have to get familiar with these things. You can watch as many videos as you want, but if you don't get your hands dirty and develop a feeling of how to handle which situation, you will most likely not be as efficient as you want to be. Last thing, experiment and go crazy. Someone had to play around with his skills in order to discover these techniques, right? In this video I barely scratched the surface of what is possible. Hopefully I could share some interesting approaches with you. I'd be glad if this information will help you to improve. But to me, the best thing would be to see someone copying these ideas, ripping them apart and making something new and interesting out of it, which no one came up with yet. Therefore, go ahead and go nuts. Thanks for watching and good luck, have fun.